babies, but no. What are this baby? And then you can show it. Look at this. Look at this pumpy pump. So cute. Yes, guys, I don't think there's anything cuter than a pregnant woman. Like, and I think at the time we feel so whatever else except that word. But
yes,
so,
yes.
It's beautiful.
Yes, like when I walked in today, one of my team members said, "Oh, yeah, you're so beautiful." I need to hear that.
Yeah.
I need to hear that. Keep that coming because in this situation, sometimes you just don't feel.
No, you don't.
Because you look at your changes in your face. You look, oh my goodness, like.
But also, that's not beyond the changes because you're tired or.
Yes.
Yeah, but
yes.
So you think that the way that you feel inside
is how you look.
But it's not. Yeah. It's not. Pregnant women out there, you guys are gorgeous. Anyway. Hello. Welcome to yet another session of At the Lord's Feet. And I'm with Pumelele. Today we have an exciting episode.
Yes, so for me, the relationship got better.
Yeah.
With me having a better understanding of who Jesus is.
Yeah.
And then my marriage got better, right? And then during that time, it was like when I first met my husband, I didn't want to have kids. It goes back to what we spoke about before, the trauma. I mean, I was traumatized by seeing umuntu wesifazane pregnant in summer. It was December time. They were like 9 months pregnant already, and they're walking in town, and we are born.
And again, she's like,
no, thank you. I'm acting a born.
And Daisy.
I'm not Daisy. The girl is not the girl. So
this is not my portion.
So this is not me, you know. So even when I met Ohabi, asked me how many kids do you want? You know, in discussions, I'll be like, no kids for me right now. In fact, I would even think adoption. You know, adoption. The idea of adoption, I loved. It was like, adoption. I want adoption. You know, and also for me, it was like the body changes and stuff like that, and all those things. And I never saw the beauty of motherhood, carrying your own child, and at that time, that time, I guess it was never put his cards. But then again, a few years later, the desire started to creep in, and it started to creep in such a deep, unnatural way.
Why do you think there was that desperation? Because you see, now we're talking about two different things, and the pendulum is swung from someone who's like, no, thank you, to someone who's now desperately wanting this.
Social
what do you
media
think created the desperation?
Social media.
But what about
for me? For me, it's like the thing Oguti, I see, I want. So I started seeing, you know, social media. Oh, I'm pregnant. Oh, this person is pregnant. Oh, they're having another baby. Oh, they're on the third baby now. You know, and just seeing that started me on I want a baby now. And and then I had like a prophetic word like a few years ago, like where we were asked, do you have kids? And the answer was no. And then this other one lady said, this other guy said, I see you having a child. And the other one said, this time next year. This time next year.
The worst thing that could ever happen to a human being.
That's like 5 years ago.
Do you understand? That's the worst thing that could ever happen to a human being, where someone says expected at this particular time in this particular way. Anyway.
So I think
this is 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah.
One day we'll talk about prophetic words and how to receive them and how to steward that, because
to test also.
Test. Because that's the story. This time next year. Dolol. Yes. Keep going.
But you know, when I turned that, the thing is, possibly it could have happened. It could have happened. Like, because I was still taking prevention pills, because so I was preventing all the time. So we would have a discussion with hubby and the type of family that we're in, and we'll look at the situation and say, okay, is it time now? Are we ready to actually go and embark on that? Because it's not a thing that you get into lightly. And the answer would be no. Obviously, I would not want to hear that. It's like when you want something, you don't hear ration. But then, if umuntu obugayo and who sets my emotions aside, you can actually see who's no, this is not really the right time. But then, it still is hard. Still is hard to have that conversation and come to a position of no or not yet. Not no or not yet.
Because it wasn't the season yet.
Yes.
And I think relying on the sovereignty of God at that time, right? So what, I mean, you've touched a little bit on this, but like what would you say were some of the challenges that you then faced, Gay, when you decided that the desperation is hit and I want this baby to obviously walking the journey up to kind of where we are today?
I'll tell you one story of one time. I was sitting in Starbucks and there was this couple strolling with their child. I was bawling. I'm sure people, like, I'm not sure, but I assume what people would think because someone was almost was they were abused in that relationship because we were sitting in Starbucks and we were having coffee. But I wasn't there, I wasn't present, I was there. And my heart was there. And it was broken by the fact that I see other people having what I want. Why can I not have this now? So it would break me. It would break me so much so that I would not be able to function. And then I think just having that conversation with God and God just bringing different things, like there will be either like a sermon or a testimony. When the word says, you'll overcome them by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, it is so true because there's this guy who shared a testimony of how they were actively trying for years with the Gospel's and there are pastors and ministers in the church and you're like, God, like these are your people, you would think that would happen easily for them. But then they shared their story, once he released it to God and said, Lord, your will be done. He was free from the disappointments month after month. Because it's a month after month. You live for 2 weeks. It's a month after month. It's a 2 week after 2 weeks. Those who have been trying to fall pregnant understand what I'm talking about. But then again, for me, it was testimonies that God would bring to me by virtue of a YouTube video. The stories of Abraham. Abraham, Sarah. But they want kids. Abraham was a man, like a chosen man of God and a servant of God who took up a mandate that Babak had not finished. And one continued on, gave up his family, moved to another city. You would think, Uguti, this man, anything he asked for, he would get. And then here he receives a prophetic word. Uguti inganzako zizo. And you're like, time passes. For me it was 5 years after hearing that word. But for them, it was years. It was years. Like, timeline, we don't have an exact timeline, but we know with the birth of Isaac, the 12-year waiting period there, there was that waiting period because they tried until like Sarah's like, no, talk to somebody else and do the thing. It's not happening.
Let's help God quickly.
That story delivered me because it was like, in his right timing, he will make it happen. Even that word, when the time is right, the Lord will make it happen, right? That for me was the thing that helped me, the words that helped me continue trusting God. This is where I want you to be. So, so it starts Abraham and Sarah and understanding they're in business. So I also was in business, and that for me gave me comfort to go to, okay, maybe I need to be doing this until I'm okay to do this. Because they were traveling. Like, can you imagine them traveling with kids and that and so I would think of that in my mind. I would see that story unfolding, and also there was a work that needed to be done within Sarah for her to come to a place where she could bear lo mntana lo, because nami there was work that I needed to be done internally. Even manje, in conversation with God before I fell pregnant, I remember just writing on my diary. I was like, Lord, I have this desire for motherhood, but then I look at myself and I look at my capability, and I'm like, no, if you want it to happen, okay, so what's it about? Yeah, my energy levels, I don't see it's can't and stuff like that. But again, desire is there for it.
Of course, I have.
Desire is there 40, so that was it. I remember this one time we were having a conversation with Wahabi, and it sounded like we were on a different sheet of music, and I was like, hold up, brother. Hold up, brother. How could you be speaking Ganje when Tina, this is what we are expecting? And I remember thinking, maybe this is not the marriage for me. Maybe this is not the partner for me, because I feel like I see her on the same page. And I remember just standing in Kishini, and I'm like, I think I was by the sink, and I'm like, Lord. And I remember just the Lord comforting me in a sense of it is Him that does it. It is Him that does it. Rachel would hold in the bag, give me kids, give me kids, and he's like, Jacob's like, is it me? Is it me now that gives you this, And that scripture played in my head. It was like, Yella, don't be looking at Raymond. Don't be looking at Ndoda. Ndoda, no control. You can just shoot it and nothing else.
For sure. For sure.
So, for me, I had to release it to God. It is Him. What Raymond mindset is at is irrespective. If God wants it to happen, it will happen. Right? And then I released that, and I stayed in my marriage, because honestly at that point I was ready to give up even kumshado law, because Nati
and also I think just on that, like, we also don't often talk about the double-mindedness that go into these desires that we have. Right? So initially you walked in and said no kids, no thank you. Happy's walking along that path. Then suddenly you're like, ooh, hello, I want kids now. Let's do this. And now Happy must now be like, okay, she wants kids now, so now he must now move with this. Whereas the conversation that should have happened initially was to track back to point zero. Like, hi, remember when we had that discussion about whatever? First of all, I want to confess that I responded out of ignorance, out of fear, out of this, out of that. Forgive me for that. Because my desire is to be. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. Instead of moving from a position of, well, I've been told I'm going to have kids. And I've been told it's going to happen next year. So where now you must do it. And so I think I'm pointing this out, not obviously to make this whole thing look horrible or whatever it is, but to say that when we go through these changes, we need to pause. We need to pause and say, okay, how much of what I'm seeing now is my influence, right? And how like, when I'm told that I'm going to have children, but initially I didn't want to have children, why was that, right? And you unpack that for yourself, you have a conversation, you go check in with your husband. You come back and say, okay, so now that they've told me, must I just believe this thing, or is it really something that I also desire, so that I'm not moving from a space of desperation? I think as part of the practicals, I think you've mentioned just amazing practicals, like stay in the Word, but be honest. Be honest about what you're going through, so that Holy Spirit can lead you to the word that you need. Like, you've quoted different stories and scenarios, and they're all in the Bible, and those were things that helped you cope and kind of overcome and kind of get to this point that you are in right now. But I think it's also very important that when we are walking on this journey, because it's easy for others are like, we want a baby tomorrow.
They get married, honeymoon, they are having kids
tomorrow, baby is here, whatever. Do you understand? Like, others, it just seems like, hey, well, they're popping babies and what's going on, I think even for me, my firstborn wasn't an issue. Like, we had a conversation, we're ready, whatever, got off the pill. I think a month or two later, I was pregnant, right? But with the secondborn, it was a different story. Like, it literally took me a whole year to conceive, and again, these are things I had to face for myself. Okay, I've always said there'll be X amount of years apart. Why am I so desperate for this situation? You know what I mean?
Just so we don't lose people right now. Let's track back. Right. So you have your first child, right? And then after you have your first child, did you have the conversation before or after you had the first child? There'll be a certain amount of time before
with
we get
my
the
husband
second child. No, like with God, yourself.
Oh no, it was the initial thing. Like it was, you will have a boy and a girl, and they'll be 4 years apart. And
so it was your decision.
That was my thing. Like I always believed, that's how it's going to work. And sometimes, we think that, I believe that sometimes God makes himself, known in his plans based on what we say. Like you'll say something that's just so odd. Like I'm like, why 4 years? I didn't understand that, right? But that was the ordained time and period, because even when I changed my mind, and said, I know that's shy 2 year gap, the 2 year gap just did not. You know what I mean?
So it ended up being the 4 years.
It ended up being the 4 years.
So interesting.
It ended up being the 4 years that I had continuously said, no, my children will be 4 years apart, because I want 4 years with my firstborn, and I want to make sure I give them the time. Like I had reasons why that was important.
Yes. So I guess it goes back to the thing we were talking about, the contracts and what we speak over.
Yeah.
Because I'm in Ghana and stuff like that, and the seeds that we plant. I guess also I had planted those seeds, and I had to. Somehow God delivered me from all that craziness, because there was a time where I said, I feel like I'm being punished. Like I feel like I'm being punished, And I remember just repenting to God, forever.
Yeah.
Forever, like like I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I also remember the words that I had said. Like there were different covenants I'd made. There are things that we say, So there were certain things that I had to go to God and say, no, Lord, I take it back, and I'm sorry, And one of them, Jane, there was a pact I had made with another friend who would get kids together.
Yeah.
We would have twins.
Yeah. Oh, so cute.
Basically, we would have twins, like you'd have baby.
How cute.
But clearly, as we were walking, we were not on same levels. Or spaces to have kids at the same time. So I had to repent to God for that covenant I made and retract and break that one. And
it's sweet and it's kind, and I think, sorry I'm interjecting, I think it's because we do get into these things because they seem right, normal, whatever, and it's like it makes sense right now, but it's according to my emotions and it's according to what I'm seeing, my view that's very short-sighted, and we forget that actually God has a purpose for every single human being. So the purpose for the children that are to come has already been set aside and decided for them, right? When you conceive, how it's all going to work out. It's not to say that it's not going to work out. Like I've seen friends for a couple of weeks apart, fall pregnant a couple of weeks apart. I mean, it happened with me and this friend of mine where it was just like, it wasn't even planned, that's just how it worked out, where she fell pregnant, or I fell pregnant, or found out, and then a couple of weeks later. And that's just God working things out for himself, you know what I mean? So it's one example, but I think to think about those things, like, just be careful, because God is the one that holds the purpose of each human being, and he decides how. I mean, the scripture in Acts says he determines the time and place where people will reach out for him and perhaps find him. So we've got to also be mindful of those things, like speaking into even forcing umntwana, like the baby must come now. But this baby has a purpose.
It's like Rachel.
Yeah.
So for I totally agree with that. To a point where even with Rachel, like there were things that the Lord began to show me with the story where Leah was able to have kids easily. And Leah was meek and had a humble heart, and to because she Bible speaks of her as if one so I would say she was not prideful, whereas on the other hand, Rachel was deemed this beautiful, like, I cannot take my eyes off of you. I'm gonna work 7 years for you because I want you. That kind of beauty, that kind of being wanted. But also Rachel was not umuntu kaNkulunkulu, or a child of who served solely or only God. That is explained where Jacob is now taking them out of and Rachel steals God, a foreign God. So for me, that told me, okay, Rachel was sitting on why senses into rather than doing it to kind. That's why even his Beneto Sake was closed. She also had to go through the process of being transformed and changed and delivered from those things, and even coming out of Kubo, right? Until she could actually start having that.
Because the promise was there. She was the chosen. She was to be the one.
Yes. It was there. It was there. The word was there. So even that, so even Sarah as well, stop started just looking at character and how she treated Ulukuzan. And stuff like that, I could see it. Okay, there was a character issue as well. So for me, it was like, okay, now where's my character falling short? So I started seeing those things about covenant that I've made, my character in nature, and all those things. I had to like have God deal with me, and still continues to deal with me until today, because I'm not yet there.
Of course.
So that's been the journey.
Wow, that's amazing. And for me, my prayer and hope is that your journey inspires someone. Is that somebody else who's sitting in the corner just like you, who is feeling this pressure, who is feeling like, oh my goodness, when's it going to happen for me? To take away a few things from the session, just about how they also can position themselves going forward, because we actually don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how, but eventually God does that. And I think it's that period of the wait where it's the hardest, but this is where you meet God.
Yes.
While you are waiting.
Yes.
This is where you come to know yourself while you are waiting. And that's my prayer really. And again, thank you for being vulnerable about your journey and sharing just your heart, on your journey of pregnancy. So I think the last thing maybe, or the question I can ask is, what would be, what did you take away from the experience so that you can actually strengthen someone else out there who's also feeling, I don't know, I'm so desperate, I want this, but it feels like it's far.
Okay, now that we're here, God is faithful. God will do what He said He would do, right? Irrespective, I remember I was in prayer at the beginning of the year, and it was like, your start of the year, and the fasting, not this year, last year. And it was January, so there was like this fast that was happening, and I was in prayer, I was just still in pain about this. And I was like telling God, Lord, I know you said you would do it, but now I just need to know when. Now I need to know when, because it's been this, I think it was like the 4th year, and every year I was expecting. Every year I was expecting, and it was not happening. And also the circumstances seemed to be impossible.
Sure.
It was like, right now it feels impossible that it would happen, right? We are still on our contraceptives. We are still, when we discuss the issue of kids, it's still looking dim in terms of in nature of where we are. And I'm like, Lord, I need your intervention. I need to know, because I know you've said it, and you've not even just the prophetic words. For me, my heart, like I know, this is what you would do. And I was just crying out to God and just praying for Him to answer in this regard. This was my petition to Him during that season. And then He gave me a vision. And I saw 2 stars falling, and He gave me a timeline. Oh, sorry, 2 stars were falling, and He said, this is a child of restoration, and this is a child of promise. I was so excited. And then I was like, okay, when? And then he gave me a timeline. I think it was 2 weeks. 2 weeks from, yes. Sorry, this was after the fasting and stuff like that. And the fasting ended 2 months passed. Nothing was happening, nothing was changing. It was as if the fast, nothing happened, And I was sitting in my room crying to God, and then He gave me that vision. And then in the vision, I was like, okay, when is it going to happen? And then God said, in 2 weeks. And then I looked up on my calendar when 2 weeks would be, right? That was the hardest 2 weeks because it was so challenging to a point where I even forgot about that vision. To a point where I felt like, this games. And you guys are married people, I don't know how you feel sometimes, but sometimes when I say just seasons.
Yeah.
And then and then I was like, okay, it's the hardest 2 weeks. To a point where it felt like wasn't wanting, And then it's like thoughts, past thoughts, lies that people had said, starting to believe them in my head, to cancel the word that God had spoken to me in the hiding secret place. And then and then obviously every time that would happen, I have to go back to the word, encourage myself in the Lord, as much as I'd forgotten what God had said. But what are you saying for me today? It would be like that. It would be like that. So I would accept that, and then again this one time there was like this big argument, and stuff like that. And then Ray came back and said, okay, we can start now. God said we can start now. And because the cell phone is on it, when the children of Israel asked for meat, and then God said, here's the meat. That's how I felt with that. And I was like, no,
I don't want this.
No, don't say yes. Don't say yes now after the argument.
Yeah.
Don't say yes now after the argument. Because for me, it was like, I don't want to bring a child into umshado where I seek both in the same space. I want us to be in the same space. I want you to want this. It was like, I want it. I want it. It's not what I don't want it. It's just been a situation here right now. Is it the right time? Because we don't want to damage lives at the same time. And then, but me now in my head, it was never Wuti. He's looking out for the right timing. It was like, when are we forming? But it was never that. Oh my gosh, they were so excited for this baby. Like honestly, it's amazing. Oh, like we so much. So, but again, because I was believing the lies of the enemy, it seemed like it was never going to happen. And then when you said yes, okay, yes, I'm like, great. This was April. May I'm supposed to be pregnant. May I'm supposed to be pregnant. Ain't nothing. Hey, June. July. Hey. I'm a testy and we went because I'm that girl. When I buy clothes, I wear them the next day. I'm not the girl that puts them in the closets.
Keep them for next season.
No, I'm not that girl. So it's just for you guys to just get an idea of who this girl is. So I'm that girl who's like, okay, I'll test like 12 DPO. So and then I just stopped buying pregnancy tests. I stopped. I stopped. I was like, no man, this is crazy. This is driving me insane. It's now consuming me. And now timing is kind of where we are meeting and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. If we do it, we do it. If we don't do it, we don't do it. Like Uri wasn't aware of timing and as long as it wasn't in me. But I was like, I'm done. Now God, I'm releasing it to God. And then it happened. And then there was this one time I was like saying for and then God spoke a word to me and said, the transfer will happen in November. But who may not, because I'm saying I'm saying pregnancy, man, I'm dealing with another issues. I was dealing with so many issues at the time. Saying Buganje, I'm my transfers, and so and then I was like, Gandhi. God was like, okay now. And then ta-da!
Oh, hello baby bucket.
So I've been blessed. I've been blessed with a pregnancy that is peaceful. There's so much peace with this pregnancy. Like I told you early, like we speak about it, like early. And I was a little bit concerned, why should I tell us so early? Because there's this thing, what if something happens, But for me, this was already a testimony. God said I would do it, and He did it at the time that He said He would do it. So whatever else happens, God has done what he said he would do. And then he gave forward on top of it, I didn't experience like sickness, like, or anything. The only thing is just fatigue growing this human inside of me. But other than that, I've had such an amazing pregnancy, because I've had to continue running business and all those things and stuff like that. And I have Mama Wengane as a friend. God has blessed me tremendously. Like, I'll be like, this is what I'm feeling. And she'll be like, oh girl, that's normal, and calm it down, you know, and stuff like that. And so I've just been so blessed. And at the right time, the Lord will make it happen. So I feel like it was the right time.
I love that. I think we can even end it off on there when you just sharing this experience, that at the right time, the Lord will make it happen. Also knowing that we don't know what the right time is. We make assumptions of what the right time is, but honestly, the one who knows the right time is God. And usually, I think now you're looking back and you're thinking, that time was never the time. Like, it could not have worked.
No,
do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so now you've got like so much appreciation even just for that. Like, but obviously this comes in hindsight though. But when you're going through it, it's like, you know? But in hindsight, you're then able to say, sure, okay, now I understand the wisdom of God. I understand His sovereignty, because the way things were happening, there's no way that I would have been able to carry on plan, or whatever it is, whatever vision, dream, whatever it is that He blesses you with. There's just certain seasons where you're not able to carry that, and there's certain season where you are ready to carry something. So I think just taking away from there is that we remember that at the right time, the Lord will make it happen, you know. And at the right time, we'll get to meet this beautiful little pumpkin that's coming, that's on the way.
Yes.
At the right time.
At the right time. At the right time. So guys, if you loved our show, please give it a thumbs up. Do subscribe and press on the notification bell so that you are notified whenever we post a video here on social media. Remember, we are just sharing our stories, our journeys with the Lord. We're not saying it's the perfect or the right way to do it, but we do know sometimes it helps to hear whether my mistakes that we made that you can avoid, or it's something that you can take away and use or implement for yourself. So stay blessed. We love you.